Welcome to Live the Upstander Life, Creating a Culture of Consent, Part 2, Case Scenarios. Hello and welcome to the second part of the Upstander video series. In the first video, we learned how to live the Upstander life by using the life model to intervene across the entire spectrum of violence, from daily acts of harm to high-risk situations. If you have not watched the first video or attended an Upstander life training, please pause this video and return after you have had the chance to do so. In this second video, we will apply what we learned about the Upstander life model to a specific scenario. We encourage you to go through each scenario video that interests you and practice upstanding in a variety of situations. Before we go through today's scenario, we want to preface that the purpose of the following case scenario is to foster awareness about being an upstander for all Stanford community members. In the case scenario, we are explicit in naming the identities of the individuals because we aim to analyze how issues of power, privilege, and oppression operate as relates to intervention. We want to be clear that we are not naming these identities to further perpetuate harmful stereotypes. By making these identities more explicit, our goal is to start a conversation around issues of power and present situations in a more realistic manner. We also want to note that no individual scenario can take into account the full complexity of social stratification that reflects the realities of each individual and situation. We recognize that these scenarios are limited because they may or may not include certain identities and may or may not include specific experiences. However, we hope that by taking all these upstander scenarios together, these series of videos can contribute to a certain extent to a more comprehensive understanding of how systems of oppression can influence upstanding.
Welcome. We are part of the SHARE education team. SHARE stands for Sexual Harassment / Assault Response and Education. At SHARE Ed, our vision is that we believe in communities where everyone is empowered to express themselves and have caring relationships. We work towards our vision through our everyday mission to empower the Stanford community to end sexual and relationship violence, stalking, gender-based discrimination, and sexual harassment through collaborative healing, education, activism, response, and transformation, or HEART. To learn more, visit share.stanford.edu. My name is Carly Jaskulski. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Prevention Education for Students in the SHARE Title IX office.
My name is Sophia Pengles. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a student staff member on the SHARE education team. Before we get started, we wanted to acknowledge that these scenarios discuss issues of racism, homophobia, sexism, gender discrimination, and sexual harassment and assault, which can cause discomfort and distress to many. We want to provide resources that you can use during and after this workshop. For support, you can visit sexualviolencesupport.stanford.edu, relationshipviolencesupport.stanford.edu, transgendersupport.stanford.edu, or yourywca.stanford.edu. For general information on updates and policies, you can visit sexualrespect.stanford.edu and the Stanford Admin Guide 1.7.1. If you are unsure where to start, the Confidential Support Team and Ombudsperson are two confidential resources that are always a great place to begin. The Confidential Support Team are licensed therapists who specialize in providing trauma-informed care to anyone impacted by sexual and relationship violence and gender discrimination. And the Ombudsperson is a general resource for any concerns that you may wish to discuss.
Now, let's do a quick recap of the Upstander life model in more detail. Specifically, to live the Upstander life, we must recognize that violence is a spectrum of daily acts of harm and high-risk situations, and that all violence is interconnected. To help us do so, we created the life model that recognizes the unique barriers that each person faces when it comes to upstanding. To clarify, the objective of the life model is to motivate upstanding, as opposed to being rigid checkboxes to follow that may act as a barrier to intervening. The priority of being an upstander should be intervening whenever possible, not necessarily hitting every point of the model. However, by practicing how to use the life model, we hope that the life process helps you to be more comfortable to effectively intervene whenever you need to.
Let's discuss the first step of life, which is to take the lead and notice the situation. In order for us to notice situations that warrant intervention, We need to notice behaviors that conflict with our personal values and communal norms that cultivate a community of care. At Stanford, these explicit values are established through policies and statements like Title IX prohibited sexual conduct. You may also have personal values such as integrity, trust, and safety. Or you may have community norms established in your dorm, student group, or organization, like respect, equity, and love. So when situations occur that do not align with these values and norms, we can take notice and be more inclined to take the lead. Take a moment to reflect on some personal and communal values that come to mind.
The second step of intervention in life is to take your identities into account when interpreting the situation as problematic. According to research, people interpret situations through their worldviews. Worldviews are like a pair of lenses that we each have. Each lens is unique to our identities, beliefs, and experiences. Take a moment to reflect on the unique lens that you use to perceive the world around you. How do your lenses influence whether or not you perceive a situation as problematic?
The third step is to tap into your feelings to assume personal responsibility. Sometimes, even when we interpret a situation as problematic, the step 2 of life, we may not assume personal responsibility. That is why it's so helpful that we all have deep-seated intuition that typically shows up in our emotional responses. These emotional responses illuminate whether our needs are satisfied or are not satisfied. Can you recall a feeling or a situation where you felt angry, sad, frustrated, or hurt? What was the need underneath that emotion that was not satisfied? When we tune into our feelings to understand our needs, we can be more motivated to take action, which leads me to our last step.
For the last step, we evaluate the situation to know what to do and to intervene safely. Based on the situation and your personal safety, here are 4 strategies called the 4 Ds that you can use to intervene. You can use all 4 or pick and choose what works best for you. Direct means assessing safety and directly intervening by placing yourself into the situation. Distract means creating a distraction to cause one or more of the people to disengage from the situation. Delegate. This means telling another person or a resource who can help you intervene. And delay. After the incident, check in with the person who you were concerned about.
Now, let's apply what we learned to one scenario. A brief content warning. This scenario contains themes of alcohol, possible sexual misconduct, and power imbalances.
As far as the characters for the scenario go, Max is a white junior from Colorado studying CS. He identifies as a straight cisgender man. The woman's specific identity in this scenario is unknown, but she appears to be a woman of color. Based on the fact that she appears to be younger, by herself, and you have never seen her before, you also assume that she is a freshman. Here's the scenario. You're at a frat party with your new friends on a Friday night, dancing and having fun. You see one of your friends, Max, sit next to a woman who you don't know. The woman seems to be very drunk and not very engaged. You don't pay much attention at first, but 20 minutes later, you see Max walking out the door with the same woman, who is now having trouble walking on her own. You don't want to make a scene at the party, and you don't want to embarrass Max in front of everyone, but you want to make sure the woman is okay. So at this point, if you haven't already, please pause the video and take a few minutes to go through the life model. As a reminder, you first lead by noticing the situation, then you interpret your identities and lenses, then you pay attention to your feelings and needs to create a response, and finally you evaluate using the 4 Ds, which are direct, distract, delegate, away.
We will now go through an example of how we use the life model in this scenario. However, there is no one correct way, as the life model is very particular to each person. You first lead by noticing the situation. In order for us to notice the situation, I need to notice behaviors that conflict with our Stanford communal norms of safety and consent, which is defined as freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. I also noticed that this situation might go against the Title IX policy that prohibits sexual misconduct, defined as any sexual act directed against someone without their affirmative consent, and specifically specifies that someone cannot give consent if they are severely intoxicated. And this situation may go against my personal values of living in a community where everyone feels safe and respected.
Next, I should be mindful of the ways I am interpreting the situation through the lens of my identities. Someone who has navigated similar gendered power dynamics as a woman in this scenario may be more inclined to acknowledge the situation as problematic. Individuals who can relate or share more identities with Max may assume positive intent and not automatically speak up in this scenario. Also, Max is your friend, so it could be hard to recognize when he may be doing something wrong at first. For me, when reading this scenario as a woman and a Share staff member, I can recognize the power imbalances between Max and the woman, especially because she is very drunk, and due to my personal experiences navigating difficult situations with gendered power dynamics. However, in this scenario with Max being my friend, it could be hard to recognize when he is doing something wrong at first. So it's important that I recognize that bias as well.
Next, it is important to tune into your feelings and thereby needs to then assume personal responsibility. This is also an opportunity to acknowledge any barriers you may have. For me, when reading the scenario, I feel concerned for both my friend Max and the woman. I want to make sure the woman is safe, but I do not want to embarrass my friend if I intervene either. Keeping this in mind,
we want to evaluate how to intervene. Remember the 4 Ds of intervention, which are direct, distract, delegate, and delay, which give us options to intervene while keeping safety and other barriers in mind.
for the direct strategy, you can go catch up with Max and speak to him outside of the party to not make a scene. First, you can ask the woman if she is okay and if she needs any help. Then, in a calm, non-accusatory tone, you can let him know that the woman he is with seems pretty heavily intoxicated and doesn't seem able to provide consent. You may also mention that she looks pretty young and it might not be the best idea to be with her since he may be a lot older, and to be cognizant of power dynamics due to age and experience on campus. You suggest that you go find the woman's friends instead and that he can try to talk to the woman again when they are both sober.
In this scenario, we found it appropriate to group distract and delegate together. In any case, you can always combine the 4 Ds as you see fit. Before Max has the chance to leave, you go up to him and ask him to help you find your phone. While you distract Max, you delegate to your friends and ask them to check up on the woman and help her find her friends. You try to delay the situation as long as possible in order to give your friends time to help the woman. Remember, this is an opportunity to be creative with your distraction.
Use this intervention strategy if you didn't have the chance to intervene in the moment. It's never too late to be an upstander. You run into the woman from the party in one of your classes the following week. You go up to her and let her know that you recognize her from the party on Friday. You say that you noticed her leaving with one of your friends, but she seemed pretty drunk and you want to make sure she is okay. If she discloses an unwanted or distressing experience to you, you can listen and point her to supportive resources. Alternatively, if you do not run into the woman again, you can check in with Max to see what happened with the woman and express your concern about how drunk she was. Depending on what he says, you can use this as an educational opportunity to teach him about consent and how she may not have been able to consent if she was too intoxicated.
Thank you for going through this scenario with us. If you have any questions or would like to provide any feedback on this video, see the contact information in the slide and continue to practice living the Upstander life.
Want more opportunities to practice upstanding? Check out our other Upstander scenario videos on our website.